Namaste. Today we are having a very important session on Phil with Peace. So Phil, as you know, is Family Immersion for Lifelong Learning. And Peace is presence, engagement, activation, connection, and enjoyment. So everything we do is organized around this. And I think that's important. One of the things I've never had is a good roadmap. We've always had so many approaches, each one tells something. So we really don't know where we are headed. So for me, peace is actually a simple way to hang on to where we are headed. And peace itself, there are two sets. One is peace for the guide and peace for the learner or parent and child. So I actually asked Anand today, what do you understand by presence? And he immediately said, being in the moment. So I thought that is great. He's himself sort of has an understanding of what is presence, right? And if you think about it, our children may have trouble with presence because if they're distracted by sensory stimuli, something or the other is happening, they may not be present. Simi actually brought up this in the last meeting when I shared about Anant narrating the Jackie the dog story in the cafe. So one of the things she said was it's being environmentally present, right? He's sitting in the cafe and he sees a dog and immediately that story comes to mind and he starts looking at the dog and narrating the dog. So presence is, I think, a very important variable. Child or learner presence may take quite some time. Uh, can you mute if you're not speaking? Yeah, thank you. So the presence, I think, is a very important variable and a good one to watch for a child. Can you mute, please? Can I mute from here?
I think they are not aware. It's written as A. The person's name is showing as
I think it's probably Suchita. Maybe she's not hearing. Let me see if I can.
I'm sorry. Actually, I am mute.
Okay. So anyway, so what I was saying was presence is a very key variable. Child presence is one of the things to keep your eye on, right? And if the child is not engaged and distracted, that is something to watch for. So in a learning environment, or any other environment, if the child is present and responding, that's something to watch. So I was very happy when Anand narrated in the Jackie the dog story because it's telling me that he's really regulated and very present there at the moment. And that's what Simi picked up on. So that's a very important indicator, if you will. Now, for the child to be present, I think first the parent has to be present, right? I mean, if we are having 100 objectives in our mind and we are not fully present, it's difficult for somebody else to be present. So the reason Tiruvannamalai has been very powerful for us is that both of us are very relaxed here. So I go to the Ramanashramam and we are both so grounded, right? And so I think that is why the presence really kicks up for Anant, because I think not just him, I am also very, very relaxed, right? So this is why that calm thing comes into play, because once you have that calm and regulated presence, I think it's going to help the child's presence as well. So I'll go more into the peace variables later, but presence, engagement, activation, connection, enjoyment, hold on to those. Theatre arts for holistic development, which I talk about, has enjoyment. But what I feel is for our children, many of the times enjoyment is much later. If you're very distracted, you can't stay with it. You are stressed. The parent is stressed. It's kind of it's very difficult. So one of the things I would suggest, and I think Anusha just put a message that being in the present is the most important. So one of the things I would recommend to everybody is to watch when your child is truly present, and that gives very useful input. And I noticed that the way Anant is in Tiruvannamalai, he's not there like that anywhere. So it gives me data points. It shows me, it tells me something about what, I can't live here permanently, but it gives me some data points on what I might do in wherever I live to make that happen. And we get it in other places too. So, for example, when we are in Connecticut, when I was visiting my son, we had similar moments. Why? Because the house was large, there was a lot of space for him, beautiful walks. The weather was, kind of nice, and a lot of trees and greenery, and nature was there. And he was enjoying that. So, there are certain kinds of environments that always, I find, have an effect. So that's why we spend more time in nature. We spend time walking. We do a lot of things that help. So these are the kind of questions, even to think, Suchita, for example, if you think about homeschooling, it's not just a question of who might teach more or where you might get more academic skills. What happened when we were homeschooling is we had a beautiful, lot of walking spaces around our home in Miami, so near Miami. And so every day morning, our first lesson was actually, um, right. Yeah, that's a good point about green and red signals. So, so watching that presence, and then if the presence is there, engagement will shift, right? When you're truly present, you'll engage in a different way than when you're not truly present. And then the activation. So to me, this is the biggest shift that has happened after coming to Ujjwal and RMCL, because what I felt was, even from the relationship development intervention days, we had plenty of therapists who would work with enjoyment, right? But they were more, like high energy type engagement. So what I realized after coming to RMCL is that what Anant really needs is much more of a calm style, much more of a lie-low presence. That is what he's needing. And once his activation is low, he tends to be more present and more engaged. So this is something for you to watch with your children. When are they truly present? And that's the way it has worked out for us. And then the connection, right? Again, when you're present and grounded and engaged, you're more likely to be truly connected to someone. And the enjoyment. So some of this I knew 20 years back, right? We did relationship development intervention. We knew co-regulation was important. And some of this we have known. So what's new? To me, the biggest is, and I think Bharati has picked up on this too, nobody really encourages silence or being quiet or trying to engage in a lie-low way. So I think Monica picked up on this as well. So that has been the biggest learning from me since we came to Ramana Maharishi Center for Learning, and since we started working with Ujjwal. That was the biggest shift, and it has been very, very important. And this is something I would encourage people to think about. What does engagement truly mean? Do you need very high energy level, or does your child really respond to a more calmer place and calmer presence? So that is something to consider. So the activation, I think that's what I mean. Your activation can be, you can be sort of low key and still enjoy. So when we are going in the ashram, we are not, really high energy. We are both sitting there and listening to the chant, and it's much more low key type of a enjoyment. And it can vary, right? I mean, all through the day, you can't be on a high energy mode. So that's the peace part. Now, in terms of where we are headed, there are three things. One is, I shared an activity of the week, and one of the parents has been suggesting, because if you share every day, then parents need time to work on something. So I thought I'll give one main activity of the day, so of the week. So if you see, for this week, it is writing down the activities in your child's day, because the peace does not happen in an instant. It is about the flow over time. So, for example, if your child is in school for 6 hours, sitting in a room trying to work on worksheets, and then they come home, and now you can't really expect them to be totally present and engaged and connected, right? So, think about the flow of activities over the day. We find we really need a good mix of calming activities and energizing activities, and this is something to think about. That's the daily rhythms. That's the first activity. The second activity, I had shared, and Monica, I think you might also be interested in this, and I think Anusha, all of you. It is about the relationship between introception and co-regulation. And I know Manju has been talking a lot about co-regulation, and we kind of know what co-regulation is: parent and child doing things together and being engaged together and things. But introception and co-regulation, does anyone want to comment on this? Have you thought about the relationship between interoception and co-regulation? Anybody has thought about this issue? Okay, so interoception is about body signals, right? What your body is telling you. I am tired right now. I'm hungry right now. I'm thirsty right now. So it's a very important sense, and the children often have trouble with interoception. And that trouble can be at multiple levels. It is that awareness, right? The signals are too high or low, or it could be communication. Even if I kind of know I'm tired, I'm not communicating I am tired. So when the children are very young, as babies, for example, the child might cry and the parent figures out, oh, maybe he's hungry, maybe he needs a diaper change, maybe he needs to sleep, right? So there is that some bodily signal that the baby is feeling, expressing himself in some way, and the parent is responding. So this is the beginning of co-regulation. And when the parent consistently responds to the child, the parent also knows, I need to, these bodily signals that I communicate, they get addressed. And what Kelly Mahler, who's done a lot of work on interoception, says, there's a strong link between co-regulation and self-regulation. And she says that interoception is the bridge between co-regulation and self-regulation. So as you express your body signals and you co-regulate with trusted adults, then that sets the stage for self-regulation. So I think this is a picture I'd like everyone to hold on to. I think it's a foundation for learning. It is a foundation for everything we do in life, right? What happens when we drive the entire process through compliance? Kelly Mahler talks a lot about compliance versus co-regulation. Now you're telling your child who already has trouble with interoception, now you're telling them to override what their body is telling them. First of all, they have trouble with this issue. Now you're telling them to override those signals and saying that they must sit and work for half an hour or 1 hour. Now, what does that do? They already are having trouble decoding their body signals. So if you look at co-regulation, I think this is one reason why Ujjwal has been very effective with Anant. He never pushes, right? He's always tuned into what signal Anant is sending. Okay, I'm too tired today. I don't want to dance. Let us just sing. Or I don't want to dance today. Tell me a story. So this started as co-regulation in the sense that the guide first notices, sees that the learner is not very engaged with dance and suggests, okay, Anant, would you like to do a story rather than dance? Right? So it might initially be more co-regulated, but now Anant is very comfortable. He just tells him, I don't feel like dancing today. Please tell me a story. Or let's do a sloka, or let's sing. Right? So that I think is a better learning for someone like Anant, because he gets to practice noticing how he's feeling, communicating, and realizing that he can work with someone to, sort of shape the learning in a way that works for him, right? So I think this is something I would like you to keep in mind when you put the child in school, and if it's more compliance driven, is that good for your child in the long run? I know that Manju has gone off for homeschooling, and it's not just simply about, I can teach my child better than the school can. I think it's also a question of, you can be more Lilo. You can say, what's the hurry if he's not getting it today? So his progress in dance is certainly much slower with Ujjwal because it is never pushed, right? It's like, okay, we'll take it in sync with what you're ready for today. So when you do it that way, it might look slow. You may not, you're not pushing it through and making the person learn. But what is the good news? The person is more tuned into themselves. What can I do? What am I ready for at this moment? And I think in the long run, that's much better for learning, because we all have to, as we become adults, we have to be able to regulate ourselves and learn. Somebody cannot just be telling us all the time to what to do. So that is the seed we have been able to plant with homeschooling. 20 years back, we were using Enki, which was Waldorf based. So now we come to what kind of experiences help this. So when we were in a Waldorf type experience, there were a lot of arts. So 20 years back, and I think I said this before, we had the same thing. We had a movement-rich curriculum. We had a whole binder full of movement activities. And we had storytelling, a lot of arts. So every time you read a story, you did an artistic recall. You drew a picture and you had a main lesson notebook and you drew a picture, right? So arts, movement, storytelling, I've been familiar with this for the last 20 years. Then what happens? You had the right approach. So now Anand tells me, we need to go back to the Enki days. We need to go back to the Enki days. He recognizes it, that he was getting a very well-regulated set of experiences. And knowing this, we have not been able to maintain it, because then life happens. You've got to go to regular school. You have to, take tests. All that happens. But now, 20 years later, we are exactly back to the same thing. So with RMCL, that's the same thing that's happening. He's using a lot of movement and art and walk and all these things, being in nature, and all these things help him, be more in tune with himself, be more present, be more engaged. And it's not easy also, because when the child has not had that, interoception that well developed, it is difficult when all this comes up. Okay, so bottom line, I want people to think about the link between co-regulation, interoception, and self-regulation. That is kind of the foundation of peace. Because why am I saying we have to be lie-low? Because when you're a bit lie-low and you're not pushing, you're allowing the child to be more in tune with themselves. And you don't force it, and you are in tune, and it's more of a dance as to how you're going to take this forward, right? So with this, this is the second part. And the third thing I had was 10 tips for parents. You can look at those tips. I've talked about them many times, but I think the theme I would like people to focus on this time is the relationship between co-regulation, interoception, and self-regulation. And then I think peace will make complete sense, because if you have a more low-key presence, you're allowing the child to express and engage. And if they're not engaging, then you just be a little curious. Why are they not engaging? What is it that's making them not want to engage, right? Rather than trying to push them into engaging, notice, why do you think they're not engaging now? And then activation, are they too low, bored? Are they too, too wound up and cannot engage? And connection, are they truly connected with the person? Are they looking forward to being that experience? And then enjoyment. So all these things have to come together before enjoyment comes. So think about the 5 P's components, what it means for the child, what it means for the guide, and think about this co-regulation, self-regulation, interoception. So I think if you think about that, all the tips and all the practical techniques and all will make sense. So with this, I'll just open it up for discussion, and then I'll have a few more comments at the end. Anyone? Monica, Anusha, Suchita, anybody? Vidya? Manju?
Yeah. So when you were mentioning about how first the story happens and then the drawing and movement and all, I was so lucky that because of homeschooling, I'll give the credit to the homeschooling thing. Because of homeschooling, I was able to see that naturally happening with the child. Even though in Waldorf, Steiner has designed it in Waldorf like that, but now when I look back, I think that 100 years before, Steiner also observed the child and found that acha for the child, if the child has to do all that, I mean, when the story is told, that is how the child will do. He will first draw it, he'll think about it, he will like keep on doing things around that story and all. So this naturally happened with Lavanya because of homeschooling. Otherwise I would not have got that opportunity to even enjoy that, seeing that. So
Yes.
I was like, whenever we used to choose something, she will think of drawing about it. She'll keep on thinking about it the whole day.
Yes.
For many days she will be thinking about the same thing, and everything will be around that only,
Yes.
what we did. So this is very natural thing. Why I'm pointing it out very I mean separately is because this is something which is naturally coming to
Yes.
the human being.
Yes.
But we have lost it in the rat race, we have lost all the natural things. And
Yes.
the thing which you said about Anant and Ujjalana's connection also, like the way Ujjalana is giving that opportunity for him to choose what he wants to do and express himself nicely, that I don't feel like doing it. This is so important for all the kids who don't have, who are not able to express in words, even if they are verbal, and children who are non-verbal, it is so difficult for them. Like they have been forced to sit, and we are making them do without asking their consent. We never ask their
Yeah.
consent, actually.
See,
No
actually,
one
that is
does
why
that.
that is why when Anant made this video, remember he protested, he was not going to dance for Shivratri, and then finally he found
Hmm.
this white shirt, and then he told Ujjwal, okay, if I can wear this white shirt and dhoti, okay, I'll come to the Shivratri and dance.
Whoa.
And he did. And finally,
Ah.
so then luckily there was one dance in which he plays the role of a devotee of Ramana. There, that
Ah.
veshti and though actually look better than costume. So,
Hmm.
and Ujjwal was so nice about it. He said, okay, so he dropped him from the other dances because in annual day he was there in three dances. He dropped him from the other dances, just kept him in that one. And then Anant made a video about it as to, why should we wear all these bright costumes? Why not just wear simple costumes? Because he's getting disturbed by all these things. So then Usha Akka said, she said, so nice Anant has expressed this. So many of her children may not be able to express that these lights are bothering me
Yes,
or this
yes.
costume is bothering me. Maybe they're not able to express it. So he said maybe he's helping other kids also by speaking out like that. And
Of course, of course.
that is
It's
what we
very
don't think
important.
about. We don't think about how what our children are actually feeling, and things like, one important pattern is tired but wired. This used to be really like he would get so tired and then he cannot sleep. So one day I told him, Anand, if you're so tired, why don't you rest? And he says, and why are you keeping on thinking? So he says, I am not up because I'm thinking. I'm tired. I cannot sleep. So thoughts come. So he's telling me the sequence in which it's happening for
Hmm.
him. Then when we came
Hmm.
to Tiruvannamalai in 2024, it was a game changer. So when the moment he heard the chants, he came out and said, the chants stop the thoughts in my head. And I was like shocked.
Wow.
He came and said that.
Hmm.
And then we went back to our home, and then every day we were listening to the chant for 3 4 times. And
Hmm.
again, we have come to the same thing because we were having a really great time. We've been this time we've been blessed. We were in Tiruvannamalai for like 2 weeks, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, we went to Girivalam yesterday, day before, and it was very
Hmm.
calm. And so, Bharati, I think you brought up about the rest once. So I realized that we messed up on the rest. We went 2 times to Ramnashramam, we went on Girivalam and all. So yesterday I was like
Hmm.
so tired. And
Hmm.
again that, and all the thoughts are coming. So then he gets very
Hmm.
disturbed. Maybe I'm not being calm or something. So it is such a complex thing, this introspection and all of this is so complex. So now I finally told him we are not going out anywhere today. So
Hmm.
so I think there's actually also a difference between calm and rest. So we sometimes overshoot in Tamil Nadu. We can say, oh, Ramanashram is so calm. This is so calm. And so we keep doing so many things. And
Right, right.
and you can actually
We
even
don't
crash.
realize.
Yeah, we can even crash with
Hmm.
that. And so today we said, we're not stepping out anywhere. We're just sitting at home. So important,
So, where are you right now? Right
Tiruvannamalai.
now at home.
Tiruvannamalai. Yeah.
Acha,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We are here for. I'm very happy to actually be able to launch Fill with Peace from Tiruvannamalai because
Wow.
last meeting and this meeting are both from Tiruvannamalai. I'm very happy about it because this is a place we feel very peaceful.
I have to yet to revisit it.
Yeah.
Lavania's dream. It is to come.
Yes, it's very.
Very soon
See,
we will
we were
try.
very fortunate that Ujjwal's, guided us through Tiruvannamalai like 2 3 times at least.
Hmm.
So that really helped. So we even subtle things like when you go to the ashram, first go here, sit here, go to this meditation hall, sit here, all that we don't know. So
Okay.
so just following him around for a couple of times. Now we are pros. We don't need anyone. We just go everywhere.
If possible, do make a video kind of thing for others who want to visit
Yes,
Tiruvannamalai. Like
yes,
you will
yes.
have all the ideas how to
Yes,
do
yes.
it.
Do talk, if anybody wants to go, because we have a lot of very subtle, like something so subtle as, we sit when they do the singing of the Tamil Parayana, usually
Uh,
people will sit on the front side. but we go sit on the back side near the meditation hall because the acoustics are much better. And, so subtle things like that. So you find out so much
Mm,
about the environment and, where you should be and what
mm,
you should do. So many subtle things. So I find that uh, Tiruvannamalai actually does two things. One is it reconnects me to rhythms because
mm.
the ashram has very good rhythms, right? Because they have the parana at 6 a.m., 6 p.m. every day. They
Same
have things
time,
in the morning.
right?
So because they have a very regulated day, it
Mm,
anchors us because otherwise one day we'll do it at 10 o'clock, one day we'll do it at 11 o'clock, but the ashram holds
mm,
you. So I find that we get, our rhythms automatically come when we come to Tiruvannamalai.
right.
So this time we had an opportunity to be here for 2 weeks, and I feel very blessed because I think it's, giving me a lot of insight. So I'm telling Anant, once we go
Mm,
back, let us make 6 o'clock our, time to chant. And he's liking the
right.
Ashtotra Puja. So I'm saying maybe we should do that so that we have that anchor.
Time, yeah, yeah. Rhythm is given so much importance involved of, right? I mean,
Yes, yes.
rhythm is everything.
Rhythm is
I
everything.
was Manivannan sir's video I was watching, so he was also talking about rhythms, and he
Yes.
has a school in Kingdom of Childhood school in Bangalore, Manivannan
Ah,
sir.
ah,
So he is into Waldorf, like. So I saw his podcast, and they were talk. He was talking about rhythms. So
yes.
I was
Ah,
thinking,
the rhythms, and
it's
then
so important.
the rhythms, so that is what, 20 years back, Beth Sutton used to talk a lot about this, and she was so, up ahead of her time.
Hmm.
Like she would talk about the autonomic nervous system and the parasympathetic
Hmm.
and sympathetic, and, how we need to balance the rest and
Hmm.
activation. All this she was talking 20 years back. Even now,
Right.
people are not recognizing all this, and they're like, push, push, skills. It's like when you actually give them a good flow, I think skills just start to develop very organically. It's like,
I have accepted it that everyone has their own journey. They will
yes,
take time to reach there.
that. But I
That
think,
is what I have accepted
but I think
finally.
people, understand about the rhythms and
Yeah,
understand. But I think, that's what I was telling Ujjwal, that we have been having this experience for 3 years. It's taken me 3 years to at least start putting some
to
words around
understand.
what we have experienced with
I
and
know.
I said, peace pretty much describes what we get from him because
Hmm.
he always leads with presence. It doesn't matter how, you're in a good mood, bad mood, wherever you are, is always there with a very consistent presence, and
Hmm.
then, allows you to engage in a whatever way you're up to, and then
Right.
that regulates you because, he's not pushing
Hmm.
you, he's just having that presence. And then it builds trust, right? Because going in, Anant knows he's not going to push me, he's not going to make me do things I don't want to do. So it builds
Hmm.
trust, and that connection grows, and then you
Right.
slowly begin to enjoy the experience. So I think this is a very good sequence for guides to consider, because I think if you're respectful of where the child is, I think that's what builds trust and builds connection. But if you keep pushing
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
beyond where they are, then I think I think it causes a problem in the parent-child connection also. And we are all there
Yeah.
because
Of course. Of course.
we all get pushed into early intervention. You must do this, you must do that. We all get
Yeah.
pushed in that direction.
Yes,
So
yes. We have to wait actually. Wow, that is what I realized with Lavanya,
yes,
that I have to
yes,
patiently wait. If
yes,
she's not getting something, it means that
yes,
it is not time for her to
yes,
learn
yes.
that.
No,
And I have to just wait.
yes,
And because after she has reached 12 years now, like she's more than 12 now. So I see a lot of changes now, like things which she couldn't understand how to do, she has started naturally doing it at 12. So I was like, wow, this is a realization that I
yes,
have to stop and I have to wait.
yes. And
Just wait sometimes.
sometimes wait. And because, see, now Anant is really grasping the Ramayana at a level I have never thought about it.
Right, right,
He's really taking it at a, deep philosophical level, not the
right,
surface literal level. And I'm like,
right, right.
how did that happen? So you don't know, because Ujjwal has been planting a lot of seeds with storytelling, dance, and everything.
Hmm.
How it
Hmm.
suddenly transferred, I don't know.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think if you're patiently doing the right things, and
yeah, yes,
the leap can be very sudden if you're,
yes, yes,
you're
yes,
going.
yes.
So
Of course.
unfortunately, education is not set up like that. It's, you know, So
Homeschooling helps actually.
yes,
Homeschooling will slow
yes,
you down to
yes,
that level that you will
yes,
start accepting things and you
yes,
will be like okay with it. Like,
yes,
I don't have to achieve it. I am okay with it because school is
yes,
also pushing, right?
exactly.
What parents can do when school is pushing them
That's exactly what
to,
I'm saying. See, that's
yeah,
exactly what I'm saying. In school, there's a pressure. You know, my child must learn to write by this age. Must learn to
yeah,
read by this age. But hey, if you have a child who has so many eye tracking problems, so many problems, motor
yeah,
problems, maybe he cannot write at
yes,
that age. So we had a Waldorf teacher who gave a very good advice. She said, I used to do a lot of storytelling with props, scarves and think blocks and everything. So she said, so what if you can't read? You keep doing a lot of storytelling and so on, because that way I didn't keep his development down, right? I mean, I used to always tell him a lot of
right,
stories we used to do with props and
yes.
everything. When
Mm-mm.
it was time for the reading to click, it clicked.
It
Because
clicked, yeah, yeah,
what can you do? How can you force somebody who's having significant eye tracking problems and other processing
right.
issues?
Mm,
And then
mm,
there was still a gap with the auditory processing, because
right,
most of them have to, I think we all grow by first listening to stories. And
right, right.
that's the gap I think Ujjwal plugged, because he doesn't have a single
Mm,
visual, right? It's all all auditory all the time. So I think he
right, right.
learned to just listen. And I think that
Mm.
is one reason he made a breakthrough in the Ramayana, because I can now sit and just read to him and
You
he's
can listen.
he can get it.
Right, right.
So, but the support is there, because if I just sit and read, he may not listen. But Ujjwal is doing it because it's Natya. He's
Mm,
giving a lot of movement input. So I
right.
think it has helped, you know. So just
Mm,
getting that right, knowing what the right set of inputs are at different times, bringing this right
mm.
inputs, that's a thing.
I think observation of the child is the most important thing. Like if
Yes,
we
yes,
start observing the child, what
yes,
the child
yes,
is going through, why the child did that. I
yes,
mean, it's so important to
yes,
observe and see like
yes.
where
And
the child is
and that's
struggling.
actually where the piece is a little bit of a five indicators for observation. Is the child
Mm,
environmentally present? Are they with it?
mm,
How are they engaging? So if Ujjwal does a movement activity with a song, some children might just do the movements. Some children may sing. So just
mm,
noticing how the person is engaging, are they interested? And I've seen a big difference. In Gitanjali is not here today, but in Mihir, I've seen so much difference. It's beautiful to watch. When he first joined, he would hardly do anything. And now
mm,
Ujjwal starts a new dance and he's with it. Like, he'll just
mm.
join in and do the whole thing. So,
Ujjwal Anna is very easy to connect also. Like he's
yes,
very calm and if you come in under him, it is like a blessing for
yes.
everyone.
Because I think see, I have learned a lot from him, because I think he naturally has this Lilo thing.
Yes.
So not
Mm.
not pushing, but standing. And I think that's why he just sometimes does things. I'm like, how did he come up with that? And I think it's simply because he's so tuned in. He's observing what that
Mm.
other person is doing.
Connected.
He's very
Mm.
connected. So he just steps in with just the right step. And I think, okay, I don't know how he came up with that, but he'll come up with it. And so I think
He's very calm and when you are around him, na, you get that calmness. It is like spreading around him.
yes, yes. And I think for me, it's every time I go to his class, it's a reminder for me, because we always get into this.
We have to be like that. I know.
So
I felt the same. I felt the
okay.
same. Why
So
I am in a
every time I
hurry?
want to watch
Have to
Ujjwal, it's
slow
like,
down.
okay, I need to step back here. So it's very difficult. But I
It's a
think
lot of learning. Yeah.
the more you learn to step back and just teach. But I think that's where the raise activity bank comes in for me, because I think to be able to step back, I must trust the experience. So I
Mm.
know that Ujjwal is bringing a good mix of experiences, singing, dancing, a lot of language, stories. So once I can trust the inputs, then I can step back and say, okay, let those inputs